Welcome to How to Shoot Your Short Film, an Ontario Youth Film Festival Filmmaker 101 series seminar. Thanks for joining us. My name is Dorothy Downs. I'm the Executive Director of the Forest City Film Festival, and I am very glad to be here with you today talking about this very cool subject. Today, we're going to take a look at some of the basics of getting your short film made, getting it shot. You've got your ideas, you've got your location, and you've got your actors all ready to go. So now what? So now we're going to give you a few ideas, a few things to think about as you set up your shots and you want to make your shots really great. So we've got two guests today, but before I bring them in, we're actually going to take a look at a video that we produced for this, just to give you a bit of an idea of some of the elements of setting up your shot. And I'm sure as you watch, you're going to have lots of questions. So when our guests come on after the video is done, we hope that you will put your questions in the YouTube chat and we'll get the conversation going. We'll talk about lots of elements of getting your short film shot. There'll be lots of time afterwards, and I guess first things first, let's just go right into taking a look at the video of how to shoot your short film.
Hello everybody, I'm Carson Hay with the Forest City Youth Film Festival, and I'm here today with
Daniel Keim, alumni of the Forest City Youth Film Festival.
And today we're going to be talking about all things low to no budget filmmaking. I'm going to be using the decades worth of experience that I have in the industry to teach you some tricks that I know on how to make a film on low to no budget. So let's go. So, Daniel, when you first enter a location, you want to scout it out. You want to look for certain things in particular. One is if you have a giant window like this, it might be too bright. That doesn't mean you don't want to use the light from it, but it does mean you probably don't want to shoot out of it because it's going to be blown out and the whites are going to be too bright. There's many things you can do about that. One of them being, if you can actually put a shower curtain in front of it, and that'll diffuse the light nicely, and it'll brighten up your whole room, and it'll eliminate hard shadows on people's faces. It'll make the whole room very nice, evenly lit, so that you can walk around in it. But you don't want to actually look out the window itself because it's gonna be too bright. And if you wanted to see out the back and film inside here, there's several ways you can do that. If you are in a massive set, you can lower the intensity by having a giant, essentially, shower curtain that spans 40 feet or whatever. We don't have the budget for that. So the next option that you would have if you want to see out there is you could expose your camera to the background and then light us a lot more. So we would be a lot brighter and we would match the background. But then you still need expensive lights. The cheapest, most affordable way of doing this is to actually just move your couch or move your chair or move your subject and move the action to a place where you're not seeing out the window. And whenever you enter a room, you should be looking for where the windows are, where the pot lights are, where the outlets are, because these are all going to become problematic. You can't just create outlets if you have no budget, right? So you need to know where the power is coming from. Do you need more power cables? Do you need extension cables? So when you're scouting off locations, these are all things you should look at.
Perfect, that makes a lot of sense.
So for this scene, what we're going to do is we're going to move the couch over there so that we're not in front of a window.
Just avoid the issue.
Just avoid the issue entirely. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Sounds good.
Cool. All right, Daniel, here's what we're going to do. We're going to actually take this single seat and we're actually going to put it over here. It's going to create some nice depth so that you can see into the kitchen, and we have layers. So whenever you're filming something, you want to think about your background, your midground, and your foreground. It creates depth in the scene and really brings like your cinema to life that way, as opposed to like being flat against the wall. You don't want to be flat against the wall. It creates no depth.
Yeah,
okay?
Boring.
Yeah, it's boring. Exactly. So let's bring all this over first, and we'll set it up. We'll use this as some set deck. We'll put it over here. Then you and I can grab this chair together. So anytime you go to film anything, you want to block, light, rehearse, shoot. It doesn't matter if it's just you and an actor or if you have a large crew of 100 people. And the reason for that is communication is key. So blocking out the scene, what it is blocking out the action that's going to happen. So we're going to have our actor's going to come in, sit down, enjoy a glass of water or wine or whatever, read the book, and that is basically our scene. After we have our scene blocked out, we're going to set up our camera for lighting because we need to know what we're seeing. Okay, so we're going to light the whole scene to make it look pretty. Then we're going to rehearse with the lighting, and then we finally shoot. Okay, so first things first, we're going to block this out. Daniel, this is Marcus. Marcus is going to be our actor today. We're going to block out the scene with Marcus. So Marcus, we're just going to have you, it's a very nice, simple scene. We're going to have you start off camera. You're going to walk in, sit down, grab a magazine, read it, and that's it. That's our entire scene. We're not doing too much here, okay? So we'll get you over to your first positions. And that's an action on blocking. So Daniel, as he's acting, you want to be looking at your scene and what our actor is doing. So nice and simply, he's looking through the magazine, whatever, and this is where we're going to end our shot off, right? So if you look again at your background, midground, and foreground, we have our actors actually in our foreground, then we have a midground and background, which are behind them, okay? So that is the depth that we're creating. We now need to light all that, including our actor, okay? So thank you, Marcus. We're going to start lighting now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great.
So when we start lighting, like, are we going to focus in the beginning, like, more on the back, or will we focus more in the beginning, like, on the character?
That's a very good question. So different cinematographers will do different things, okay? I feel strongly that you should start off by lighting your background. Because although your actor is obviously the most important thing, people often forget about their background and it stops them from creating depth in the scene. If you light your background and go to your actor, so I go background, midground, and then like I'll do like light some practicals and some other things to add to the scene. And then I actually will light my actor, not last, but because that's where I'm going to do the most tweaking. So when I bring in my actor at the end, I might just slightly adjust stuff. As opposed to if I focus on that, I'll never get to the background.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, just the background of here is actually, it's really nice to have this depth, and they already have lights set up for us. So since we don't have a lot of money, I'm not going to bring a lot of lights. Let's use what we got. So let's just turn them on quickly. So as you can see, we've already added, that adds actually quite a bit to our scene already. But that is just, again, our background and our foreground. We have some what's called mixed lighting. What mixed lighting is outside is actually a bluish color. Light from the sun is actually a bluish color. That's measured in kelvins. Don't worry about the kelvins right now, but just know that as you get closer to the temperature of the sun, it's about 5,600 kelvins, and that's gonna be a lot more bluer. When you get down to 3,200 Kelvin, or the other side of that scale, it's a lot more orange, like what we have going on here. A lot of indoor lights are a little bit more orange, while the outside ones are blue. Okay, mixing those is not a problem, but if you're not careful, if you mix colors on somebody's face, it can look sometimes kind of ugly. So we're actually gonna stick with this kind of orangey glow since we have what are called practicals around, and we can justify this type of lighting. Do you understand what a practical is?
Yeah, like something that we have access to right here, like a practical effect. Like I guess it's built into the location of the set.
Yeah, but you have fake practicals too, right? So if you have a lamp, you can use a lamp as a practical in the scene, and that'll justify the lighting that you're creating. So it's a really good way to have lighting on set and make it look seamless, even though you're probably adding a lot of light, right? So in this scene, we have a bunch of practical lights in the back, and they're kind of a little bit more orange, and we have a lot of blue coming in from over there. We're basically going to let this just kind of add to the room ambience. We're not going to worry too much about the light coming in from outside, but we do need to be careful because the sun's going to set, and that's going to change the temperature, the color temperature of the sun. So first thing we're going to do is I think we should find a lamp, and we'll put a lamp on here to motivate, and we can turn it on, and we can motivate the lighting, and that way we can light our actor pretending like they're being lit by the lamp. So now that we have this orange light, we now can motivate lighting. We now know that there should be some orange on our actor's face, right? So this nice warm orangey color on our actor's face, as opposed to and we have it in the background as well. The only blue we have are from the windows that we're deciding not to shoot through.
Yeah.
Right? So we still need to add to our actor and light our actor a little bit more. Just just make him pop from the scene a bit, right? So we're gonna do that by using another light. Okay, Daniel. So here's our shot, more or less. We're gonna have Marcus on the day. He's gonna come in and he's gonna sit down here. We're gonna frame it up similar to this, and that way we can see all the depth. Yeah. So you see how we lit up the kitchen and we turned on the pendant lights, and it creates those levels. Yeah. Those right?
It depth in the background instead of just like a boring old white wall or something.
Exactly. So it just creates these nice glowing orbs, among other things. We can see some of the blue coming in, and we just assume that there's a light source coming in that way. That's obviously very natural. And again, when you're location scouting, you should be thinking of these things about time of day, right? So if we're facing north or south or east or west, it obviously makes a big difference on what time of day you show up, because the lighting coming through the windows is going to be different, right? Or it's going to be brighter or darker. So coming in at the right time can make all the difference. So now we have everything. We have this stuff set up. We have a lamp here, and we have our background is all lit, and we have it kind of well composed. And what I'm thinking our shot should be is essentially, we're not going to move the camera too much. We might have a slight tilt from when he walks in and sits down, and that's about it. If you compose a frame very nicely, you don't need to move the cameras that much, right? So, at this point, I think we have a kind of a nice setup. It's well composed. It's well framed. At this point, why don't we run through? So we blocked, and we're still kind of lighting before we get to rehearsal. Okay, Daniel, we're going to use something called a lantern. Have you ever seen a China ball? Like, have you ever seen they use it in movies a lot, actually. Or maybe at like a gimmicky restaurant or something. Those balls and it shoots lights. Those are actually used all the time in the film industry. Believe it or not. Really? Yeah, it's a really cheap way of what's called diffusing your light, making it a lot softer and creating really pretty light. And you can get them for like 10, 15 bucks on Amazon. Or you can get them at the dollar store, actually. Now, I am not going to be using, mine's a little bit more expensive, but it's the same general concept, okay? So we're going to be using a China ball in order to diffuse light and spread it kind of evenly around so that you can't really see where the source is coming from. Okay, and we're just going to add to our subject's face that way. So this is, again, it's just called the lantern. This one specifically, the reason why I spent money on it is because it folds out nice and quick and easy. Exactly what I said, which is just a China ball. It's
bigger, I guess.
Yeah, well, bigger and
more light, probably.
Sorry?
Like, would there be more light?
Well, here's a general rule when lighting a subject, okay? It's not always the case. It depends on your story. Lighting should always augment your story. It's not meant to stand out. A lot of shows nowadays have really, really pretty lighting, but they don't augment the story. My favorite cinematographers always augment the story with their lighting choices. And that's what we're doing. We have a practical, and then we're going to make this look seamless by adding to the practical. We're just going to add more light, right? And it's just going to augment the story. And that's our goal. So now we have a China ball, and we need to put a light in here and then rig it overhead. Okay? So we're going to do that now. We have this dude right here. You can find online, you can find lights for $80, $100, and you'll get the same effect. Okay? This light, a little bit more expensive, but you don't need to use this light. All you need to do is make sure that you match the orange tones of that light.
Like similar colors.
Exactly. And that's easy to do, and there's plenty of lights that can do that. So let's rig this out. So do you know how to use a light stand? So right there is the knuckle. You're gonna loosen that one up. See how it's parallel to the ground like this? This is gonna be a lot safer. Safety is the number one thing on any film set, okay? When you have it too high or too low, it's easier to topple over. When it's like this,
you can...
Sorry?
It's balanced?
Yeah, exactly. So with this is when those triangles are the strongest. Triangles are a very strong shape, right? So now if I hit this, it doesn't matter how much I hit this, it's not going to fall over, right? As opposed to if you have them very tall off the ground, it's easy to topple over. We don't want that because we don't want to hurt our Marcus. We don't want to hurt Marcus. So, okay. Yeah, so you see here, that's 2700 Kelvin.
Yeah.
2700 Kelvin's really orange. Now, if I crank this all the way up,
Oh yeah, it's
to
blue.
blue, right?
Yeah.
Now, it depends on what you white balance your camera for. So if you white balance your camera for 3200, then your oranges are going to look orange. But if you white balance your camera for 5600, then the blue is going to look white. Okay?
Yeah.
So you're telling the camera what is white. Okay? So we're going to keep this similar color to that lamp, which is down to 27 to 3200 area. And then we're going to operate this up battery. So I actually grabbed from the dollar store. This is from the dollar store. They're only $1. And you can actually add some more color or warmth to his face by just reflecting a little bit of extra light there. Or you can actually take some away by adding some black. Okay? So, and that's as easy as just leaning up one of these boards.
Somewhere.
Yeah, you can just lean it up against something or use a clamp that you might have, and you can just bounce or take away light depending on the scene you want.
Yeah.
You might want more contrast, or you might want a little bit more light on your subject. In our case, we might just bring it down here, and it's just going to give a little bit more, just a little bit more warmth to him. Or maybe if it's not dramatic, but it's a little bit more subtle. But if you look at his face,
Yeah, no.
can you see it?
See it totally.
Over here in the shadows is where you can really see it. So you see this warmth right here. Watch what happens when I flip over to the black.
Yeah.
See the difference?
Totally.
It's just a little bit of extra.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. It's from the dollar store.
But it makes a difference.
Yeah, it makes a massive difference, honestly. A lot of people use just bouncing as a technique. You know those you know how you can get these with the trifolds? Perfect for filmmaking.
Oh,
Perfect, because then it can wrap around their whole face.
Perfect.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in our case, we can either choose. Really, nothing's the wrong answer here.
I think I think probably the reflective.
You want to reflect a little more
We were
light?
talking about maybe lighting his face a little more.
Sure. So let's do that. We're just simply gonna, in our case, we're gonna make sure that's not on camera. We'll just bring this in.
Yeah.
Make sure we're not in frame.
Here, I'll check. No, you're good.
We can just lean it, literally lean it. It's not gonna add a ton,
No, I know, but like.
but it does add.
Subtle.
Yeah. So the only other piece of lighting that you want to make sure that you get is called a catch light. A catch light is a little dot that you, Marcus, if you can just kind of look up for a second, is that little glowing orb, that little piece of light to the eyes. Okay? Can you see how he's got a little reflection of light there?
Yeah.
It's really important to get that. It creates a lot of depth to the eyes, a lot of depth of character. If you don't have that, sometimes it can make him look menacing, evil, villainous. You don't want that. You don't want them to look dead in the eyes. You want to bring some life to it by just having a little bit of a catch light. Okay? We are lucky here where the actual giant window that we avoided is actually acting as a catch light. Yeah, so we're getting a little bit of reflection there, which is perfect. So we're just gonna go with what we got because we just struck gold with that one.
Yeah.
Okay?
Perfect.
Perfect. So we blocked. We've now lit.
So now rehearse.
We rehearse.
Perfect.
Okay. So Marcus, time for rehearsal. And he reads his magazine. Now, we blocked, we light, rehearsed. In filmmaking in general, sometimes you tweak.
Yeah.
And there's one more thing that I wanted to show you. Here, we're catching.
Yeah.
One more little thing that I want to show you that can add a ton to your scene. Okay? And that is right here. I brought something called Atmosphere Aerosol. There's a few companies that you can buy this from. It's literally $10 a can, and all it does is create a little bit of atmosphere. It creates a little bit of this kind of smoke that can come through. You want to use it sparingly because you don't want it to look like somebody's smoking a cigar in here. But what happens is when you shine light through it, it creates this kind of atmosphere to it. It'll fill up a room really nicely. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this. We use the whiteboard. We're going to use the blackboard, and we're going to just spray it throughout our scene, and we're going to really fan it out so it's nice and thin. And we're going to try not to get too much in front of our actor in this case, because our actor is in the foreground. Okay. So now that we have everything lit and we added just a little bit of atmosphere to it. We blocked. We're now lit. We've rehearsed.
So now we shoot.
Let's shoot. Okay. So Marcus, you know your action. Perfect. Let's get you to your first position. We're gonna go behind the camera.
It totally adds.
So if you see those pendant lights, see how they're like glowing now? That's what we want.
Yeah.
Okay. So right here, we're just gonna hit record right here.
Perfect.
And now that we've hit record, we can tell our actor action. So go ahead.
Action.
Thank you so much for joining us at the Forest City Youth Film Festival on how to make a movie on a low budget. I hope you learned a few things, Daniel.
I definitely did, and I'm sure that the high school students who will be watching this will be able to take away a lot of good lighting tips for the future.
Fantastic. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Fun. That's so great. Thank you guys for making that. So now I'm joined by Daniel Keim, who is our most enterprising young filmmaker from 2021 Forest City Youth Film Festival. Daniel, that's the Connor Kolopsis Prize for the most enterprising young filmmaker. Daniel had entered 5 films in the festival, and he had 2 official selections. So amazing, amazing work. Daniel, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And also we are joined by Carson Haight, who is a film prof at Fanshawe College. He's also a member of the DGC and a filmmaker also. So thank you for the coaching session, Carson. It was fantastic. And welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah, that is fun. It is a lot of fun doing that kind of thing. I've got so many questions and so many directions I want to go, but I think first of all, I'm just going to start with Daniel. I want to hear, your thoughts about that coaching session. There's not many people who get a one-on-one coaching session as a student filmmaker with a college prof. So, and a director. Tell me, what were your main takeaways?
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot, and I thought it was very beneficial. I think probably the biggest takeaway was learning about lighting the background, midground, and foreground, because it adds so much like depth to the scene. And in my previous films, I'd never really thought about that. I've kind of only ever shot against like a white wall with a boring background. But learning to like look for that when you're scouting your locations really helped me out. And since then, I've actually applied that a few times since I've been looking for locations. The other thing that I took away a lot was, as obvious it is not to just shoot against like a blown out window, because I have done that before. But like it made me think kind of elsewhere when you're scouting a location, to think of creative ways to set up the scene so that it can look properly when you light it. And then the third thing that I think was another big takeaway was just the small differences that Carson taught me about, like going to the dollar store and getting those little bulletin boards that can act as either diffusers or like reflectors. And then I really loved the atmosphere aerosol, because it really added like a subtle difference to the shot. When I saw it in person, I was kind of blown away how much it added. But and I guess one final thing would be thinking about it in terms of block, light, rehearse, shoot, because it's kind of an easy way to think about how to approach a scene when you're shooting it, and it can be applied to kind of like all different aspects of the shoot. So I'm very happy that I got the opportunity to do that, and thank you, Carson, for teaching me so much about it. But yeah.
That's amazing. Very, very, very good. Let's bring Carson back in here, because I want to also talk about now shooting outdoors. We have a really great question from Jennifer from online. She says, what advice do you have if you're filming outside? Open grassy areas, dark forests. So now we've had a really good overview of an indoor shot, an indoor scene. What advice can you give if they take it outside?
Yeah, a few things really. One of the main things you want to avoid is if it's a bright sunny day and you have direct hard sunlight, that can be really bad on somebody's face. So you want to make sure to avoid that. Stick to the shadows and expose to the skin. Always expose your actor. Um, and try to avoid shooting those harsh pockets of sun. And also, sometimes when you're no budget filmmaking, you have to wait for those clouds to go over the sun to kind of diffuse it to make everything kind of evenly lit, so that when you're filming, it can look good. And if those are not options, then find a location where there is some shade. Just make sure that you have even lighting on your actor's face, because those pockets of sunlight that can kind of bounce on somebody or hit them in the face can be very distracting, and it can be very different. It can cause some harsh shadows, among other things. So I would suggest it's kind of a few of the same tips where you can get bounce boards and bounce some extra light on the person's face, or you can get shower curtains and broom pools, and you can potentially block them from getting very harsh sun. There's a lot of real simple, easy tricks to just make things look a little bit better outside.
Very good. Yeah, and I think in a way, using natural light can really be it can be so easy. It really saves you a lot of trouble and a lot of time sometimes.
Absolutely. The sun is literally the best source of light that we have. All we're doing in filmmaking is replicating light sources, right? Making it look natural, using the sun to come in through a window and using that as a motivator for the rest of the lighting in the room. And now we have the benefit, obviously, of practical lights or lights that would exist in a room. And then we're just replicating those. So if you do have a really good script and it can take place outside, and you have the perfect time of year, or what's called magic hour. For people watching, what magic hour is the first hour when the sun rises, or the first hour when the sun sets. You have this magical orange glow to the sky normally, and with that you have beautiful lighting across people's faces. I like to backlight people that way, so I'll put people's backs to the sun, and then you have this gorgeous backdrop where you can just film for about an hour straight with just gorgeous lighting, and you don't have to do much to it. Maybe bounce a little bit more light back on the face.
That's really good to know. That's nice to think about. Once again, in your pre-production, timing things so that you shoot at different. Let's talk about pre-production for a few minutes, and maybe bring Daniel back in here for this too. You mentioned, Daniel, how you really kind of can see that thinking through your locations now. In the pre-production, as you're starting to think of your shots, what types of things do you keep in mind? If it's an action shot, or what are you thinking of when you're now thinking about setting up a shot?
I think one of the biggest things that I would stress is like low budget or high school filmmakers is in pre-production, really think about what you have access to. So only like plan a situation that you would actually be able to go out and shoot, because if you're kind of planning a situation that would just be kind of impossible to shoot, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, which no one really wants to do. And the other thing that I would suggest when you're planning your shots is really think through like the meaning behind the shots. Like each shot in the film should have meaning, I guess, like to contribute to the story you're trying to tell. So try and think, how could I communicate this story like through the cinematic aspect of the film. And I guess I would say, like, be very organized with what you're doing. That's one thing that I've learned along the way, because when you're really organized in your pre-production, it just makes the shooting stage so much easier, in the sense that when you get onto set and you're ready to shoot, you should kind of know exactly all the shots that you want to do. And don't get me wrong, like, there's always open for improvisation. If you come up with a shot on the set that you think would be beneficial to the script that you didn't think of before, totally go ahead and add it. But I think for the base of your shots, you should really know like how you're going to transition from one shot to the next. So kind of think of it in terms of like you're editing the film before you actually shoot it in your head. So like you'd want to maybe go from like a medium shot to a wide shot, or like a medium shot to a close up. And if you're thinking of that before you actually go and shoot it, it will just make the shoot so much easier. And one thing I suggest, and I've done this a lot, is just storyboarding. And it's a lot easier than you'd think. You can just go on to Google and look up storyboard templates and then print them off from online. And then, I mean, I'm terrible at drawing. So, I mean, I just kind of draw stick figures, but it's really the idea of getting the basis of what you want each shot to look like and setting it up in your head before you actually get onto set. Because if you do that, it will just be so much more organized and it will make everything so much easier when you get there.
What great advice. I mean, that's so much good advice. The editing while you're shooting is an excellent idea. Tell me, how do you know if you've got enough coverage? You've got an idea of a shot in mind, and you've only done it that one way, how can you ensure that you've got enough coverage? And tell us, do you know what I mean by coverage? Just in case people don't know.
Totally. So coverage would mean, like, I guess covering the scene in as many, I guess, aspects as possible. So instead of just like if you have a dialogue scene, instead of just filming it from one angle, by having more coverage, you would, I guess, film it in 2 or 3, and that would make it easier to like edit the scene together. Because like if you have coverage from one spot, it will be very difficult in editing. For example, if someone maybe whiffs on their lines, or there's something goes in the camera that you don't want to be in the camera. If you only have coverage from that one spot, it will be very hard in editing to kind of set the film up in a way you want. So if you maximize your coverage by kind of thinking like this scene would benefit if I had like a medium shot of the one person, but also a wide shot, it would make it possible for you to kind of go between those 2 different angles while you're shooting, so that once you get to editing, you can avoid that of having kind of minimum coverage and having something that could potentially like mess up the scene.
Amazing. Great answer. Now, I've got a really good question from Lucy from YouTube. And I think, I'm not sure which of you will be able to answer this, but how do you measure an actor's mark to create lighting around the background first? Shouldn't it revolve around the actor because they need to hit the mark and the camera needs to focus?
I mean, I can take that, I guess. It's a little bit confusing of a question. Again, it's block, light, rehearse, shoot, right? So when you have an actor going through a scene, you're going to know the blocking, you're not going to know where they are and where they're going to land and where they're going to move to. And of course, you're going to, based off of that is where you have the knowledge of where you can put the lights. I mean, on bigger sets, you're going to have crew members who are going to be doing background and other ones who are going to be lighting the actor. But we don't have that luxury, and that's why I suggested to start with the background first. Because when you start with the background, now you have a room ambience that you can make sure that you're properly exposed to, and then you can adjust to the actor after that, so they can spend more time lighting the actor. If I was on a bigger set and I have several crew members, things might change a bit. So I think that might help that question a bit. Obviously, when the actor comes through the scene, normally, yes, you would set marks for where they are at. You would measure the distance from the flange on the camera, meaning where the sensor is on the camera, the distance to that actor, so that you make sure you get perfect focus. And you just make sure that your lights aren't in your shot at that point as well. For us, we kept it nice and simple by creating a scene with a lot of depth and keeping our camera on sticks, because the second you start moving the camera in that scenario, you might start seeing lights, or you might start seeing light stands or practicals that are in the scene. So we kept it a little bit simple for our scene because, again, we did it for no money. So
yeah. So tell me, Daniel mentioned the close-up, medium shot, wide shot. Would you change the lighting going from like a close-up to a wide shot? Oh,
absolutely. Traditionally speaking, you might start on your wide shot and then go in for coverage after that. And if you start off on your wide shot again, you would, I would start from lighting my background, midground, foreground. And when you go in for a close-up, you want your lighting to be motivated from the same spot. So for us, it was either the patio door or the lamp that we had set up. And then when you go in closer, you can actually adjust your lighting so that it just looks a little bit better, because you're not going to notice the difference between that wide angle and the close-up if you just tweak that lighting slightly. If you let it wrap around the face a little bit more, if you have a bit better of a catch light in the eye or whatever it might be. This is very commonly done, where you just move your light source, or what is replicating your light source or being influenced by your light source, closer to the subject, just so you have a nice kind of wrap around their face with the light. So that is typically how you might shoot that, and it's very, very common to adjust lighting for the close-ups.
Beautiful, great. I thought at this point it might be really interesting, Daniel's film. Daniel, would you mind if we maybe took 5 minutes and watched that, and then heard from you about things that you've learned and how you may tackle things differently in the shooting, in the pre-production, now that you've learned this. And then people who are watching this and making their own short film can maybe take some inspiration from you, and how this experience of working with Carson might have changed how you might have shot some of those scenes. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Okay, let's take a look at Daniel's film from last year, Shoe Illusion.
Yo, what's good?
Man, I'm outside your house.
Yeah, I'll be out in a minute. Just give me a sec.
I know what that means, man. I'm trying to fly this party right now, and we're already pulling up late. All the boys are snapping me pics, man. It looks hype.
Yeah. Bro, like, chill. If my parents hear that, they're gonna kill me. Let's go downstairs.
Parents care. What is taking you so long?
It's my bad, man. I'm just trying to pick a pair, and it's a little hard to decide sometimes.
Man, no one cares about what shoes you're wearing. You really gonna wear a pair of $1,300 shoes just to get them ruined?
No, I won't get them ruined, and I will wear them. Just watch. I'll wear them.
So wear them, you won't?
Yeah, you're right. I probably won't wear them because that just...
Exactly, buddy. Just pick any pair. You literally have more pairs than someone needs in their lifetime.
Yeah, I'm about to pick a pair. Just give me a sec.
I'm missing this party right now while you waste your time.
Chill. I'm about to pick a pair. Okay, yeah.
Okay,
we're gonna wear the
NMD.
The NM.
Clean, simple.
Nah, I don't think it can be the NM. I mean, technically, it could be like a Jordan 1 type beat,
Bro,
but
how
I
are
don't.
you putting so much thought into this, man?
I don't know, like, I work hard to get these shoes, so it's like when I wear them, I want to choose, like...
Who even
good
cares,
pair.
bro? We're literally missing this party while it's in its prime just because you can't pick 1 out of 30 shoes.
Bro, I care, first of all, and second of all, I'm just trying to pick the perfect pair. I have all these shoes, I want to pick the right pair out of them.
What does that mean? The perfect pair? That doesn't exist. Man, that's just an illusion.
Oh, to tell you about the perfect pair. You might have confusion about some illusion that you think that there may be, but having this logo on your feet shows people you're worth something. So, like...
Nah, bro. Let's say there's a kid in the back of your math class, and he's wearing those exact Cactus Jacks. Does that make him better than everyone else in the class?
Well, it means he's flexing on everyone in the class nicely.
Really think about this one. Just because he's wearing a pair of shoes that cost $1,000, it doesn't reflect his personality in any way.
Like, maybe not, but like, so why does that even,
Exactly.
like, I'm just trying to.
Let's get out of here before you waste any more time trying to pick your shoes out.
Okay, actually, just give me 1 minute here. Like, it's just hard. If you knew how hard it is, if you had like this many shoes, you'd know that it's not like an easy
Man,
decision.
put these on.
Like,
I'm leaving without you.
you won't leave. Like, just wait. I'll be like a minute.
I'm gonna
Give
say
me
this
a sec.
one more time, man. The shoes you're wearing in no way reflects your personality. When you wear those shoes to a party, the only thing you're telling anyone is that you need an expensive piece of material for them to approve of you. Put those on, man. I'll see you at the party.
Okay, just give me a sec. Like.
Thanks so much, Daniel, for letting us see that again. Congratulations again. It was an official selection last year. Fun little scenario that tells it's got a really good message, and I think this is the great thing when you just find a small scenario like that can kind of give a meaningful story. So congrats, and tell us now, watching it again after your coaching, what kind of things would you do differently?
Yeah, it's actually, I haven't seen it in a while, so it's nice kind of revisiting it to look at it. But I definitely think one of the main things that I would redo is, if I don't know, like I don't know if people could notice this, but in almost every single shot, there's shadows on the walls behind the actors, like the subjects. There's shadows around the walls, which I mean, I wish I could redo somehow. I actually, in the film, I took some of the money that I saved from work, and I purchased these little, there's like $100 lights on Amazon that are really nice. It's a little lighting kit. So I had two lights to light the film with. But if I'm being honest with you, I didn't really know what I was doing with them. Kind of just setting them up to light the scenes. But now that I've talked to Carson, I kind of definitely wish that I could go back and revisit this to add more, kind of like what we were talking about, the background, foreground, and the background, midground, and foreground lighting. And the other thing that I would probably say is just to be probably more calm with the camera. I got kind of excited at times, like in the last monologue scene with my cousin where he's standing on the stairs. I started zooming in with the camera, and on a phone it does not look good to zoom in on the camera. Like, you lose quality, and I wish that I did not do that. But like the all the clips that I had of him saying that dialogue, I did end up zooming in on the camera, and that's something that I could have just done in editing, like adding the zoom. So I wish that I could have redone that. But all in all, like, I think the lighting thing was probably the biggest part. And now that I've had the opportunity of talking with Carson, I feel like I've learned a lot. Especially, I would have added the aerosol can, because it really does add quite a bit, and I wish I could have done that. But in terms of things that I did that I think that I'm proud of, though, like I would suggest, like I said earlier, really taking advantage of things that you have access to, in the sense that all those shoes that I used in the film, I didn't actually, none of them are mine. Like, the only pair that are mine are the pair of Vans that are used at the end that he puts on. But they're all actually shoes from my friends. And I just collected them all because I kind of knew that if I collected all the shoes my friends have, I'd be able to build this really big, rare shoe collection, which is kind of just an example of, like, just think of what you have access to in a situation that you could make, and just execute on it, because like I said, like that it's not actually a realistic situation because I don't have any of those shoes. But I really wanted to think of a creative way to use what I had access to.
Oh, that's so great, Daniel. I mean, it really is. You know, I think one of the things that really has to be stressed is that every time you make a short film, it's a learning experience, and it's all about trying it, just putting it on its feet and trying it, because you know you learn so much just in the doing of it. So. You know, congratulations and thank you for taking, you know, being critical of yourself and analyzing the work that you did. But, you know, I think it's also really, really important to be proud of the work that you did and the things that, you know, you managed to pull together to, like you say, use what you've got. And it was a great example of that in so many ways. So. Congrats again. Now, one thing that I wanted to touch on before we wrap up, because we are nearing the end of this and we really haven't paid any attention to audio in this whole scenario. And I think that it's one of the things that can be really easily overlooked, and I can't stress enough how important it is to put a bit of thought into audio. So, Daniel, first of all, just tell us quickly what you did for audio on Shoe Illusion, and then we'll bring Carson in to give a few hints on the important things to keep in mind when you're thinking of the audio. So you first, Daniel.
Yeah, so for the audio we used like lav mics, but they weren't like the nice lav mics, because they're the kind that you kind of just plug into your phone. So both of us had our phones in our pockets, and then the mics were connected to them, and you can get those for pretty cheap on Amazon. Like they were around $30 or $40 for both of them. And I was genuinely surprised with how good the audio was from them. But on my first few short films, my dad would warn me, like, be careful about the audio because it's a lot more challenging than you'd think. Because I would just go and shoot with no way of recording the audio. And then when I went to edit it, I actually had to go back and then do ADR. Like I'd have to re-record their lines in the editing to so you could properly hear them. So don't underlook how important audio is, because it's a lot harder than you think, and that's why it's like its own department in filmmaking. But my biggest suggestion is, if you don't have access to kind of like portable lavalier mics, would be to just put your phones on you and record them, and remember to clap the audio, because if you don't, it could be hard to sync them together. But yeah, using your phone is probably the best way if you don't have anything else.
Yeah. So for those people who don't understand what you mean when you say clap the audio, it's an important point. Just explain that a little bit better.
So basically, when you're editing, when you clap the audio, it adds a little spike in both the camera and in the audio recording. So it makes it possible to zoom in on both of them, and then you can kind of align them together. And there now is ways that you can do it with, like, you can do it automated online, which Carson actually taught me. I didn't know that, but it's just an easier way to avoid that problem in post-production.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's bring Carson in and hear some thoughts from you, Carson, around this really important point of making sure you've got some decent audio.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to start off by saying that audio is actually, I hate to say it, it's more important than video. It just really is for your story, because story always comes first. And if you can't hear your story properly, that's kind of a problem. There is plenty of movies that are very well done without dialogue necessarily, but the audio is still clean. And if you think of movies like Blair Witch Project, which I know is a little bit older, but there's a few other movies like that too, where it's like they're found footage. In those scenes, they always have perfect audio still, which doesn't make any sense considering it's found footage. But and we don't even think about that. But because we're able to tell a story very cleanly, audio just becomes more important than video, is the unfortunate truth. Not unfortunate truth, but it's the truth. Is that we will forgive bad video, we will not forgive bad audio. It takes us right out of the story. And there's a bunch of little tricks you can do if you're on a kind of low to no budget. So yeah, using your cell phone's a great option. But going even a step further is, I certainly, with my cheap microphones, and you can get a lot of really good cheap microphones nowadays for $30, $40, $50. And even if you go on like Facebook Marketplace, you can get somebody's used microphone for even cheaper. And I actually, when I first started off, I had a broom pole, and I just taped the microphone to the end of a broom pole, and then I put it over top the actor while we filmed, and it worked pretty well. And because the key to really good audio is to get your recording device, your microphone, as close to the subject as possible. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you a very clear projection of what they're saying, and it's going to lower what's called the noise floor, which is the room ambience of what's going on around you, that like hissing noise and whatnot. It's going to lower that, and it's going to make my voice a lot more predominant in the microphone, so you don't hear it as much. So yeah, use a broom pole, use the mic that is available to you. I really like Daniel's thoughts on use what's available. And if that's your cell phone, great. I would much rather have a bad microphone positioned properly than a really good microphone positioned across the room. So taking the time to make sure that your microphone can be nice and close to your actor's mouth so that can catch what they're saying. And you can do that by, again, a broom pole, or I've seen people use curtain rods. Whatever you can use to really tape it to whatever you can use and get it close to your actor. Position's more important than the quality of your microphone, to be honest with you.
Excellent. Good. Yeah. Well, you know what? There's so many things to do that you can do to put your film together on a budget. And as student filmmakers, often you can borrow equipment from your school if your school has it. So always check in with them to see what they've got available for you to borrow. And you know, I thank you guys very much for coming and helping us with this today, and giving us a rundown on all of these pointers. So we're wrapping up now. I think that we're right near the end. And any last minute thoughts for our audience?
Sure. I have a few thoughts. I guess there's a few things that was brought up, and I guess they're just takeaway points. And one of the things that we talked about a lot is we talked a lot about how important pre-production is, and it really is. The more pre-production you do, the easier the rest of your shoot's going to go. The other thing we kind of touched on, but we didn't uniquely say, was when you're filming, remember that everything in your frame is important, and everything in your frame you should take charge of. So if you have an actor who's let's say they're a younger person, but they might have in the scene, they might be very they have a lot of attention to detail, then their room should support that, right? You don't want to have a messy room behind somebody who is very attention oriented. So everything in that frame is important. So, and taking the time to light it properly and do that will add a lot more to your scene than you think. And and just using what you got. I really like Daniel's points there. I was smiling a lot while Daniel was talking, because I could see how much he took away, and it was kind of exciting that he took that much away from our brief time together. So thank you, Daniel.
That's amazing. Thank you both so much. Very appreciated. And for everybody out there, take some inspiration. Make a film. Submit it. Our submissions are now open. They're open until the end of June 30th. So if you're anywhere in Ontario, Canada, you can submit films to this festival. The Ontario Youth Film Festival, oyff.ca, can accept films from all across Ontario. There are regional competitions also. So the Forest City Youth Film Festival, if you're living in southwestern Ontario, is where you want to submit. And the rest of the province can go in through the OYFF to submit. So it's really important. Like I said earlier, just make your film. Don't worry about absolute perfection. Do it as best as you can and make it a learning experience. We want to see you at the festival. We want to see you become one of the official selections for the 2022 festival that happens October 22nd this year. So We've got more seminars coming up over the next few weeks, and if so, please check them out. Once again, you'll find some information on those seminars at oyff.ca, and that your teachers at your board can access the information too. The experiential learning leaders can also access the information to register for all of the seminars. So we hope we'll see you all again next week and at all the upcoming seminars. Thank you for joining us.